LiveStream for July 30th, 2013. I'm here with Mark Scattergood, otherwise known as Garrett. So we're going to go through a few different things today. I'm not going to ruin the show by telling you what, though. So we'll just start out. So we haven't been doing live streams as often, mainly because we've been working on the game, and you can play it now. So there's no point in us really demoing it. However, there are things that we can demo that are fresh and new that people haven't seen. So we're going to do a little bit of that. So the first order of business was, as usual, to thank our Kickstarter backers who made this thing possible. I want to do everything in my power to make sure that everyone that contributed to Kickstarter feels like it was a great experience and that they got the game they were looking for. Along those lines, there's a few people in the community that have really been helping out. Yeah, so anyone who's been hanging out on the forums a lot, you've probably seen Colin and Raven were both recently brought on as moderators, which we're very grateful to them for that. They've been great contributors, along with a huge community who's been awesome. SXX, I also wanted to specifically call out anyone who's been working on Linux. Him and Liam and some of the other guys have been doing an incredible job, and he's also going to be working with us on some other stuff, which is we'll be able to talk about in the future, I think. And I don't know if you guys have been looking on YouTube lately and on Twitch, but the live streaming community has gone absolutely nuts. Guys like Petard, guys like Zaphod, the Realm, and all the Ballistics, all those guys have just been going crazy, just posting live stream after live stream, and you can usually pretty much any day see people in the office with at least one live stream up throughout the day, so it's pretty cool to watch. It's funny, the Reddit community, some people are complaining that there's too many videos. There's too many videos in here, it's just videos. Yeah. Like, no, it's fine to have videos. Let's have lots of content in there. Yeah, and I think as far as that goes, it's mostly just people want more discussion as well, and I think eventually it'll kind of get that nice balance of both video and just people talking about game and mechanics as more and more people get pulled into the game. So. Exactly. So anyway, shouts to everybody. You're all awesome. Couldn't do it without you. So I want to talk a little bit about hiring, because on the last live stream we mentioned that we had a few open positions. Yep. I think we've had some pretty good response from that, and we've actually hired at least one person. So we have a full-time graphics guru starting on August 12th. So he's going to basically be taking the graphics engine home, finishing it, and optimizing it, right? Because we haven't really done a ton of optimization yet. In fact, there's too many missing features to really optimize it right now. So that guy, his name is Steve Smith. He's a guy that's worked with us before in kind of different capacities, not at Uber, but with us. He's a huge DirectX expert, currently works at Microsoft in the Advanced Technology Group, so the smart group of guys over there. So I can't wait to get him on board. That's going to free up some of our other guys like Kevin to work on more other game stuff, so by having a dedicated graphics guy. So I'm super happy about that. So we're still looking for some more programmers, looking for some gameplay programmers. To be qualified for this, you really need to have super strong C++ skills because of how much of the game is written in C++. We're also looking for some JavaScript, HTML people who can do web-type content. Again, C++ isn't required there, but really having it is kind of important if you want to be able to dig into the deeper game systems. Any other positions? We're still looking for a community manager. We've been talking to some really incredible people. We're not done with that process yet, though. So what would you say that the qualifications requirements are for community manager are? It's a mix of kind of a little bit of marketing, a lot of talking to the community, and just being able to maintain a level head and really be able to explain stuff, and not only have your head wrapped around what the community is interested in at the moment, but also have a very deep understanding of the game, mixed with a bit of just basic project management, because most of the job comes down to knowing what's happening, when it's happening, and how to let the community know what the hell is going on. And unfortunately, it's not. You're going to have some experience doing similar stuff to really be qualified for this. To be basically the lead community manager. Yeah. One other position that we're looking for is I don't know how many people out there know this, but Planetary runs on top of our Ubernet backend system. The Ubernet backend is a fairly sophisticated backend system that runs all of our servers and accounts and all that kind of stuff. So we're looking for some ops people. So this would be people that have experience, managing Amazon instances and, doing some simple database stuff, like to actually just run the operations, keep the servers going, all that kind of stuff. It's not really a coding job. It's more of like code crossed with operations, and as well as back-end programmers as well, people that know, C# database type stuff. So Anyway, that's like a big ad, so let's move on to something more interesting. So I want to talk a little bit about the patch schedule. You know, at the very beginning when we first released, we were doing, you know, sometimes 4 patches a day. And the reasoning behind that was, like, at the beginning we had a lot of stability issues we had to work through. I mean, not that we don't have any now, but we had a lot more. We needed to do rapid cycle, and we were really just concentrated on getting the release stable enough to actually play. Now we're much more in, you know, adding big feature mode, and that's part of the reason why builds take longer now, because, you know, when you add a big chunk of stuff to the game, it destabilizes it, and it takes us longer to converge on a stable build. So, you know, the patch frequency that we get is going to basically just depend on what we're working on, what we're doing. That's why we've never set, you know, a set frequency for it. So I think, you know, I would expect, you know, probably once-ish a week is.
It's been working out, yeah.
Around
once a week,
yeah.
once a week and a half.
And there was a little bit of time in there when I think we even did less than that. But I mean, you know, it's summertime. People have been working hard, and some people are taking vacations and stuff that affects scheduling. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the price drop. The price drop from 90 to 70 for the alpha. There's a little bit of feedback from people like, oh, you know, I paid 90, you know, I could have waited and paid 70. Well, yeah, and if you wait longer, you can pay 60, and if you wait longer, you can pay 40. Yeah. You know, the price is going to continue to drop as we go towards retail, and as we have room in our servers and all that kind of stuff. You know, I feel really good about protecting the value proposition that the Kickstarter backers paid into. Yep. I don't think it's crazy to drop the price of the alpha as we kind of come towards the end of it. You know, how would you felt if you paid $90 for like 2 weeks of the alpha left, right? And then, you know, the price drops the next day to 60 for the beta. So I'm hoping that we're you know, going along a good line there, and that people aren't too torqued about that. But I think it's pretty reasonable after 2/3 of the alpha is over to drop the price a bit.
Yeah, I think we've always felt that the price was mostly about getting that early access and getting into the game really early and helping be an active part of developing the game.
I mean, the people that have been involved in the alpha have basically been helping us to make the game at the end of the day, especially the ones who are giving us feedback in the forums and all that kind of stuff. Yep. The other thing that it did is it made it easier for people that were at the beta level to just do a quick upgrade for $10 to get into the alpha. So think about it that way as well.
Exactly.
So I don't know if there's any other kind of random boring stuff like this. I want to get to the action and show off some of the stuff that Ryan's been working on.
No, I mean, like for August, obviously, we got some big features to work on. We've talked about them a little bit. We obviously never promised dates, but you know, we know what our big fish to fry still are. I
mean, the big missing, well, obviously there's still there's tons of work to do on the actual gameplay, right? You know, people are like, the walls are too powerful, and this, you know, there's all kinds of like systems that have to be evolved. Yep. But some of the big rocks we're working on now are AI, orbital units, and interplanetary gameplay. Yep. So to that end, I'm going to move over to the orange couch and introduce Ryan, and he's going to show off the cool stuff he's been working on that you guys don't have in your hands yet. So
thanks, everyone.
Let's do that.
We good?
Right. Yep. So people have seen Ryan before. He's been on. He's one of our core engineer guys. And you know, as the project has evolved, we were talking about who is going to do the orbital stuff, and Ryan was like, I want to do the orbital stuff because I'm into that stuff. Yeah. So take it away.
Okay. I'm actually going to begin my little segment here with a shout out to our CEO, Bob Berry. And here's why. When I first met him some 4.5 years ago, pretty much the very first conversation I had with him, I was just describing my background, which includes an undergraduate degree in physics, and he kind of smiled and said, "That's cute, but it turns out that the only thing harder than doing real physics is doing video game physics." And that has stuck in my head ever since, and certainly recently as I've been working on this stuff. But in any event, I guess I will also throw in the standard disclaimer, which is that this stuff isn't done yet. So what you're seeing is a work in progress. But that being said, what I've been working on is the Celestial Simulator, and this at its very earliest conception started as just an n-body physics simulator. So quite a while ago, I had this working where you could basically just throw stuff in orbit. and do some real physics simulations. Now, this is pretty neat. At its heart, it's fairly simple. Any given body here has a position and a velocity, and you basically divide time up into tiny little slices. And at any given little slice in time, you look at this guy's position and velocity, and every other one of these little guys, and especially the sun in the middle here, has some gravitational effect on it. And you sum up the total of the gravitational effects, and you run that into the calculation to modify its acceleration, you modify its velocity, you modify its position, and then you advance the simulation a little time slice. And at its heart, that's all that's going on. Now, this...
By the way, that just described all a video game simulation, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's fairly elegant. However, in this case, one of the things that makes video game physics so much harder than real physics is that, the actual universe has the benefit of not being divided up into little slices of time, whereas in a video game, that is the case. So if you have a body with a very extreme orbit, let's say we have a highly elliptical orbit, basically you'll get to a point where its position and velocity are changing too rapidly, and the little slice of time that you have to update your calculation isn't small enough, and what you'll see is unexpected behavior. Like this thing just won't stick to its orbit the way it's supposed to. This is fundamentally a breakdown of the integration that underlies the system. So this is one of the problems with this model. There's other problems with respect to, if you get a variety of bodies, if you get more than 3 or 4 bodies going at once, they very quickly begin to interfere with each other's orbits, and they don't behave in predictable ways the way you would want them to. So if we want this little guy up here to orbit this planet correctly, we have to get it far enough away from the sun that the gravity that the little planet feels, or let's call it the moon in this case, the gravity that the moon feels is sufficiently dominated by the planet and not so much influenced by the sun in order to get something that even begins to appear to approach a reasonable orbit. So these are the kinds of problems that I've been addressing. And on top of all this, you throw in the consideration that, well, okay, say we've got a bunch of guys going at once, we need to be able to predict what they're doing and where they're going. In a true n-body simulation, there essentially is no way to predict those orbits. So as time went on, I began adapting the model to be a little more favorable to being able to do things like draw orbits and adjust orbits. And what I settled on was a sort of a modified two-body system where the physics of all the individual objects are basically independent of the objects around them. This guy right here is only really going to respect the gravity of the sun, and it's not going to get distracted by its neighbor. This is a toggle in the physics engine, and one of the underlying goals of Planetary Annihilation has always been to build a platform that was flexible for other people to do cool stuff on top of, in addition for Uber to do cool stuff on top of. So my notion is that in the, whatever the final product we ship is, we're going to support both kind of true, free, chaotic n-body physics, as well as more constrained physics where things are pretty much locked to the orbits that we specify for them. So what we're looking at here is the actual system editor. So is this what you're going to prompt me to?
Yeah, I was just going to say, talk a little bit about the actual system editor, as opposed to just the planet editor.
Yeah, so what we've shipped so far is a planet editor. And the goal here is for people to not be able to just only spec out their planets, but to also spec out star systems. So we want to be able to enable people to create emergent game behavior by virtue of the way they set up their systems. So say we have, actually let me start over here. Say we have, we want to create a scenario where 2 planets start far away and then they approach each other at some point later in the game, enabling planet hopping style gameplay. The notion is that we can use the system editor to set up that kind of behavior and then play a game in that kind of a system. So this simulation goes much faster than the game simulation, but the notion here is that at this point the planets are far apart. They're both going to follow their respective orbits and come much closer together at some point. At this point you can actually start looking at hopping from planet to planet.
I love the idea that you could set up an orbit in the game, preset it up like this, or we could one other idea that was cool was you set up a map where the two planets are going to collide eventually, and you have to basically win before that happens. There's a bunch of different interesting, a lot of interesting stuff that could come out of this.
And so anyways, what I've been working on here is what is hopefully a fairly user-friendly interface for laying out a star system and putting things into orbits the way we want them to be, that sort of thing. And also being able to adjust the way the orbits go.
Right, so it's kind of a prototype, a little bit of a prototype of like what the game UI will be like too, right?
Yeah, so the notion here is that, the interface in the system editor will feel very familiar when you get into the game and you actually start trying to interface with the system in the game. When it comes to doing things like moving units from one planet to another, or trying to target a planet with an asteroid so that it'll behave in a reasonable way.
So the two things you're going to be able to do in the game, basically, once you start building engines on something, or if something happens to have built-in engines, is modify its orbit. In other words, like hijack a moon, modify its orbit so it goes closer to another body so that you can attack them, or just calculate an intersection orbit so that you can smack them together and destroy stuff. Preferably both. Get a few loops around, fire off some missiles, and then smack into for the final kill on the commander or commanders.
So I think probably the last sort of set piece I have here is, in addition to setting up initial orbits for planets, I've worked on code for, what's this guy doing?
It looked like he was going in for his transfer.
Yeah, I think I'm going to...
So, what Ryan's going to show you here is effectively prototype code for the calculating of intersections so that you can have things smack into one another. Because, oh no.
We lost it, but that should be pretty easy to recover.
So while you're recovering that, one of the other things I wanted to do on the stream here was answer some of these Reddit questions, if not all of these Reddit questions. And I was going to do that after the demo, so I'll just intersperse here a little bit. So we made the decision. The first question is about why are the comment scores hidden in the Reddit thread? And you can still upvote, downvote them. I pretty much go through them all anyway. So, that was an arbitrary decision that we made. I suppose we could try it the other way, but it was basically there to prevent people from trying to manipulate the upvote, downvote stuff.
Yeah, it's contest mode. It's designed explicitly to make sure that we just get, a random mix of questions that people are seeing. So.
Next question is about our Anson leveler supposed to be able to hit air units. Ground units are supposed to kind of be able to shoot at air units. We might turn it off if it makes sense to. I don't know. It was something other games could do. But we will have to build anti-air. They're not going to be very effective at it. And the Killer 666, awesome name by the way, is saying that you hardly ever have to make dedicated anti-air units. I'm not sure I agree with that because I get commander bombed quite a bit with air units, but I get your point. Anything that's discussing balance at this point is kind of somewhat silly to talk about. Looks like you've got your thing ready.
Yeah. So the last thing I was going to talk about is basically, in order to get something from one orbit to another, you basically have to put some energy into the system. And typically what you'll do is you'll add a little bit of delta V, which will take a large orbit and make it a more elliptical orbit. And then when it gets from the big end of the orbit to the small end of the orbit, you apply a little more delta V to turn it back into a circular orbit. And the logic for launching attacks on planet from the outer solar system is basically to apply delta V on the asteroid at the outside, bring it into a tight orbit. This tight orbit is going to orbit faster than the slower orbiting planet on the outside. And when it gets into the correct position to do another little energy boost and kick it into an elliptical orbit that'll crash into the host planet, it'll go ahead and do that. So that's what this simulation here should demonstrate, assuming that everything works correctly. So you see they're all calculating the inner orbit, they spin around, and then they move into a collision course with the planet here. And in this case, instead of blowing up, what they do is they just calculate a new trajectory into an outer orbit, And when any given one of those gets there, it's going to start the process over again.
Yeah, we still have to write the code where it actually blows the planet up when it hits it.
Yeah, we don't have the collisions in yet, but you can basically see what's going on here.
Although sphere collisions are fairly easy to figure out, in my experience.
So there she be.
Yeah, when I first saw this, I was like, wow, that's really cool. We should put this in the game. So I don't know when the build with this stuff is going to go out. It still has some more work to be done on it, but you know, this is the big question that everybody has. When are we getting interplanetary gameplay? So I thought it'd be great to show this on the live stream, just because it is stuff that isn't in the game yet that you can't play with. So hopefully this answers some of those questions about that. Oh, sorry. So anything else to say about this, Ryan?
I don't think so, other than it continues to evolve. There's obviously work that has to still be done. At the moment, all the interface stuff is hard-coded, but we do have a panel for basically adjusting the parameters of the orbits of individual planets, and we're going to get that in ASAP, and then shortly thereafter we're going to get in actually uploading it to the server so you can play with it. And
so probably what we'll start off with is, there'll be multiple planets, but one of them will still be the main gameplay planet. As Orbital evolves, and Orbital is being worked on as well, by the way. So the stages are basically get this working, get Orbital working, and then get interplanetary orbital units working that can traverse between planets, and then the core kind of like gameplay side of it will be there. So I'm going to rip through some more of these Reddit questions because the people take the time to write them down. So I'm just going to rip through them here. So feel free to interject if there's something you want to talk about.
Sure.
Many players find navigating around the planet disorienting. Do I think this is a significant concern? Do we have plans to address it? As I said on more than one occasion, we're definitely going to do some experiments with mini-maps and other visualization modes. Ben actually did a UV unwrap that took the planet and basically made it flat. All that stuff is possible, and we'll be experimenting with it. It's just not super way high up on the priority list right now. Will there be space units? Get that question a lot. So, maybe we've been unclear on what space units mean versus orbital units. So I want to kind of clear that up. Orbital units are basically still attached to a planet, and a space unit to me would be something that's just free floating in space. I mean, these units that we have, these planets are effectively space units, right? And this camera mode where you see the actual orbits and stuff is effectively the space camera. We don't have any current plans to make space fleets of ships that fly around like Star Wars and have big battles, because that's not really the focus of the game. But there are units that go in between planets. There are units that are going to actually be in space flying around like a ship, but it's much more limited number, and they're not big dreadnoughts and space fleets, because that's just not how the fiction of the game works. That being said, I think this engine would do a great job with that stuff, and as we expand the game in the future, maybe we'll get more into that, or maybe we'll make a mod, or somebody will make a mod that does it. I don't know. So it's not in the current plan for the game in terms of giant dreadnoughts and space battles, but there is still going to be some stuff with regards to space. Are there going to be adjacency bonuses? And are there going to be building templates? Templates, maybe, not really super high up on my list, because without adjacency, they're not as necessary. And adjacency is just a feature I don't dig. I don't like the game trying to impose on the player how you have to build your base. So if people want adjacency, maybe they'll do it in a mod or something. Any chance of you guys revealing all starting locations to all players? I see that as a game mode choice, to be honest. I don't see any reason why not, why that couldn't be an option. All of the starting stuff right now is kind of, I would call it experimental. Talking about the modding system, official modders. So the idea with official modders is, people have been asking, like, when are you guys going to start taking requests for engine changes and things like that? I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but basically the official modders are the ones that we think have really cool projects going on that we want to make sure that we support pre-game release. That'll become more important, I think, in beta than it is right now. But the reason that we have set that up is so that people can basically apply, and there's a link in the modders forum to do that. Give us information about what you want to do modding-wise in your experience, and then that gives us a point of contact with the community and the smart modders and the people that are really trying to do more difficult things that they need help with. It's all kind of somewhat wishy-washy at this point exactly how we're going to handle that. But we are trying to gather that information and work with people as best as possible. Are you going to be able to generate half a system and mirror things and all that kind of stuff for fairness or for ranked ladders? Yes, I would expect to be able to do that kind of stuff. People really want the wall strength reduced. I don't honestly know if I disagree with them. Maybe we'll talk about that. But it's really a game mechanic problem at the moment, not a strength issue. So we can, go into great deep discussions about that, but it's probably not the best time to do it. I don't disagree with you guys that walls are, could use some adjustment. I'm just not sure if it's in strength or in actually just continuing to work and improve the game mechanics. If you expect a balanced game right now, then you're just, you're expecting the wrong thing, basically. How will gas giants units? Will air units be able to fly on them? No, air units will not be able to fly on them. Will there be multiple moons orbiting a planet? How many can there be? Well, what do you think, Ryan? How many can there be?
I think the limits are going to be more practical as opposed to tech-oriented.
I agree.
You have 20 moons orbiting a planet. That's going to be silly and probably not a lot of fun.
Although, who knows? Maybe it will be fun.
Unless your thing is to just, blow planets up.
One of the things that the system editor does not have yet is basically the way to place a belt or like an asteroid belt of stuff. Yeah. That's something that I would like to do so that you basically can do systems where you've got some inner planets and then you have like an asteroid belt and then maybe some gas giants. So I actually asked Ben today to work up the gas giant tech, the shader, so that we can, because I think having those in the model would be good sooner rather than later. What plans do you have in terms of post-release support, if any? Do you expect it will be limited to a bug fix patch or two? So as Ryan said earlier, the idea here is that this game is going to be a platform. I want people out there to be able to build stuff on top of the game and innovate on top of the game. And to do that, we need to continue to support the game. So the intention is to continue for us to have a team continuing to work on the game, adding more stuff to it, improving it, all that kind of stuff. That's the basic idea. Really complicated question about micro versus macro play. Yes, there's going to be more automation. We're missing tons of UI stuff that will eventually have things like, area commands and stuff like that, and auto assists and all kinds of stuff. So, when talking about micro versus macro, yes, I realize the game right now is very micro oriented. We're still working on getting stuff working. So. FPS sucks on my machine. Has there been any thought towards things like, making it so you can play the game with just icons and stuff like that? So the short answer to that is, we haven't really done any LOD work or anything like that. So yeah, there's lots of room for improvement in terms of performance. There's lots of room for things like thin clients, and there's even, we were talking today about the idea of the spectating only client. Anyway, the bottom line is, yeah, you're right. Units, there's no LOD whatsoever on units. They just render at whatever distance they're at. So that's part of the reason why we recommend that you have a pretty fast machine for the alpha. Now, on that note, we do have a graphics programmer starting on August 12th. So, another one. And he's going to be responsible for doing some optimization, and we'll start to see those features come online. Can an asteroid collision cause mass geographic changes to a planet? Any thoughts on how water will react to it? Will we see dynamic water physics? You're probably not going to see dynamic water physics because of network issues. But things like a crater hitting and then running some water fill-in code like we do on the planet now is definitely possible. I'd also like to kind of see if you dig down super deep into the center of a planet that you get some sort of lava-like core that gets exposed. What are your intentions behind the bot unit type? So the bot unit type is, they're going to be the more maneuverable, maybe even slightly faster than tanks, popcorn-style unit that you would use in situations where things are tight and where tanks can't maneuver properly. We don't really have this mechanic exposed too well at the moment because, just because we don't, because we're still working on a lot of stuff. But that's the intent, is to really try to differentiate bots from tanks. Will the idea of choosing a spawn stay in the game? I think as a way to play the game, it makes sense. I wouldn't mind seeing the ability to set up start spots in the planet editor at some point, which would, but to me those would still be, you'd still have to choose one of them. So, so NanoLathe, one of our biggest contributors, wants to know if there's any more opportunities for the devs to converse with the prominent members of the community with the aim of revealing some of the creative methods behind Uber's decisions. Are internal discussions something that could become something more the community could participate in? I kind of feel like we already, like on the stuff that's questionable, like we already bring this to the community and talk about it on the forum. It's kind of difficult to have you guys be in the office here. So I kind of feel like we talk about a lot of stuff and talk about decisions on the forums quite a bit already. I also don't like having a bunch of private conversations. I think it's much better to have these conversations in public because everyone can see the reasoning and the thinking behind stuff. Now, there's a lot of like base level decisions that were already made because, hey, this is the game that we're pitching. But when it comes down to like specific things, I go to the community quite a bit. Will trees be reclaimable and destroyable and catch on fire and stuff? Yes, that is definitely something we're going to do. Modding, yes, modding is going to be very important. People want to know more about the Galactic War. I don't think we're really ready to talk about it yet. It's going to be a metagame similar to what the Boneyards did. Stay tuned for more updates on the Galactic War. Are you going to improve mechs placements? Yes, there's work being done on that right now. The initial one that I did was very quick and dirty, so we're going to do a better job with that. The other thing that we're going to do is improve the way that you get advanced metal extractors on top. Because right now you basically have to destroy the old one before putting the new one on, so we have some ideas on how to improve that. Specifically, the idea, and we haven't 100% decided to do this, is basically the T1 and T2 will basically be able to live on the same spot. So you can build one or the other or both on the spot. The points of contention are things like, if you build a T2 and there's no T1, does it automatically build the T1, or is there a hole there, what the deal is? So we're working through that stuff. Lots of questions about how the lighting looks flat and bland on the backside. I agree, we need to get HDR in there. That's something Steve will be working on improving. We're going to have ladders. Yes, I definitely want to have ladders. 1v1, 2v2, that kind of stuff. There's no reason not to do it. And let's see. Oh, this is a good one. We'll be able to get another planet editor, something more like a map editor, so we can choose from a list of what to place where currently. So the idea is that the editor can be basically infinitely expanded. I mean, I wouldn't mind having it where you generate a planet like you do now, and you can go in and move things around and place stuff specifically. I don't know that we are going to write that. I think what we're going to do is expose the hooks to the editor that can be done, and then let the community cook up whatever they want there. I'm personally pretty happy with the procedural stuff, but I think it'll be awesome when you're able to actually directly edit stuff. And I know people have been playing around with modding this stuff quite a bit. Can you spin up at least one Singapore server? I'm not sure that we need a Singapore server. I feel like the game's fairly latency tolerant, and I'm not sure what that would actually improve. Yes, we could easily spin up a Singapore server, but unless it's actually getting used, I'm not sure it makes sense. So post in the forum if you're in the East and you really want a server in Singapore. But I honestly don't think it's going to help. We have Australia covered as well, so you could play on that one. I think that's pretty much it. So I want to thank everybody for watching the live stream. I hope everyone sees the Planetary Orbital stuff in progress and gets excited. I'm excited. I mean, it's really the next big chunk of the game, and really the biggest remaining big rock, as Covey would call it. Once the game is effectively feature-ish complete, or the big rocks are there, we'll be going on and polishing everything and improving it. And I know there's still tons of pathfinding issues and gameplay issues and things to implement, nukes and transports and all this kind of stuff that we're working on. But it's coming along. You're getting to see the game basically be developed in front of your face, and I'm pretty I'm pretty happy. I mean, I'm tired. I think we're all tired, but I think morale on the team is fucking just super great with a capital F. So thanks again to everyone watching. Thanks for Mark for being on camera, and Ryan for showing off his stuff. And we're gonna get this stuff out to you guys as soon as we can, as usual. So sayonara.